LEEF Brands had a very important press release about entering a new state, New York, and I sat down with Micah Anderson, the CEO of LEEF Brands, to give his thoughts on what this means and share a few other things about the company's direction and the future.
Starting with the extraction facility. So our manufacturing facility up in Willits, we've done a bunch of improvements to prepare us for the amount of material that we're going to receive off the farm. So we've essentially doubled the capacity out of two of our main extraction lines and added about 25% to our smaller extraction line, which is a solventless line. And that's all in preparation for the material that we're going to be running off of the farm this year. On the New York front, so part of what we've been investing into, and this is something we've got about 6 months at least into this deal so far. We put out the LOI announcement today. So we're going to acquire a manufacturing license in New York. And we found this group that it's ironically very similar to us. Group of guys that purchased a 1,500-acre farm in upstate New York. They are doing cultivation. They have 2 acres of cultivation. They've got a gummy line in market that's doing very well. They're in about 50% of the retail stores in New York. They, with their cultivation licenses, they also had this processing license, and a tier 1 processing license is the equivalent of a type 7 processing license in California. So for us, it's beneficial because we're going into New York and we're going to do the same exact thing that we're doing in California. And we're going to do the same thing with the same clients that we do it with in California as well. So we'll be selling to the same 5 clients that are our best clients in California will be the same that we work with initially in New York. So we should have that acquisition closed before Q1. It's not going to take us a long time. We've already got all the equipment there. We're looking at it. It's kind of like an asset light model, at least New York will be, because we already had all the extraction equipment that we've acquired over the last almost 10 years in California. We moved that all out. It's ready to slide right into this building. And with the acquisition, there's a 10,000 square foot lease on this farm. So they've got 1,500 acres. It's very similar structure to what we have in California. And we're already having conversations with other cultivation groups where we can start to accumulate and co-locate these 1-acre permits in New York on their farm. So we'll structure a deal to where we help manage the cultivation. We start to build our supply chain in New York, no different than what we've done in California. So that'll be good because that's something that it'll be, by Q3, Q4, we'll be seeing the impact of New York, both from revenue and margins. We've already got a bunch of good conversations going on with our clients. So we've got predictability. We know who we're going to be selling products to. So on the farm in California, we'll be planting 65 acres starting in April 1st, depending on whether we might go a week early or a week late. But all the licensing, we've got everything dialed. We're ready to go. So we'll do 65 acres. We'll harvest that in June. We'll start running that material, call it July 1st. The initial 65 acres is going to be exclusively for oil, so dry biomass material. We've been able to collect a bunch of data from other farming groups in the state, and so we're just highly confident our cost of goods on a per pound basis should be around $8. If we do better on the yield side, maybe it gets a little bit better, but the $8 per pound, and just as a reminder, we're currently paying $25 per pound on average for that same type of material. So huge impact to our bottom line. When we run that material through this extraction technology, we'll get an even bigger pickup on the margins. 25 is going to look good for us. 26 is going to look even better. Oh, and then one other thing I want to put on your guys' radar. We're going to do a shareholder event on the farm this year in October. So we'll harvest in June, which is our spring crop. We'll replant the entire 65 acres, and then we'll reharvest most likely starting October 1st, somewhere right around there. So we want to have shareholders be able to come experience the farm, get to see what 65 acres looks like, take a look at what the 26 expansion plan will be to where we move into the rest of our 187 acre permit, see how we harvest, have a bit of a celebration event. So if you guys can put that in your calendar, we'll send something out so everyone has it, but it'd be great to have you guys come. I think New York ends up being as big of a market, if not bigger than California over the next handful of years. I think our margins will be slightly better in New York. Once we're fully equipped with like the state-of-the-art equipment we're using in California, which will most likely be in 26, they'll improve even more. But based on our actuals, what we know of extraction, what the products are selling for, and the yields that we get out of the equipment that we sent out to New York, I think we'll be somewhere in the 45-ish% margins, so slightly better than what we saw in 24 in California. There's opportunities to improve that, but I think just to be safe, that's the number I'd go with. So like 26 will be a much bigger year. 25 is going to be our kind of like, okay, let's just get out of the gate, get set up, build a team, put some infrastructure in place. And then as we build our supply chain, meaning start co-locating these farms next to each other on this ranch and getting better supply chain agreements with some of the other cultivators in the state, we'll see improvement in 26. We'll see some revenue in Q1 and Q2, but the majority of it will be on the latter part of the year.
After you close on this, you will be in New York, you will be a multi-state operator. What's your vision like? Like, how many states do you eventually want to be in?
I don't know the answer to that per se, but the vision is to essentially replicate our business model, go into markets where concentrates are doing very well. So in New York, it's weighted even differently than California. 55-ish% of the total sales are coming from concentrate products. There's a serious demand for what we do in a market like New York. And so the idea is let's go in, let's huddle up with the same clients that we have in California and move into these different markets together. They've got consistency in the products that they need for their products, and then we've got built-in clients as we go into them. So, and it's beyond the US. What I really see, I see this moving outside of the US, and by the end of 26, if we're in 3 or 4 markets, I'd say that that's a win. Target the best markets for us to do that in the US. And then we've already been approached by groups in Germany, another group in Australia that are where we were 10 years ago. And they're saying, hey, we love what you're doing. They've flown in, seen our facility. And I think that there's a way for us to move into international markets through some of these conversations that we're having. And I'm not saying that for sure is going to happen, but that's definitely the goal. That's the vision, is to like replicate what we're doing, so LEEF becomes the kind of global leader for concentrate production.
But why is there a demand in, let's say, a state like New York? I mean, aren't there other players that do what you do?
Yeah, there are. It's just they're new to it. They're not as good as just because they haven't been doing it for as long as we have. There's a lot of solventless setup, which is a specific type of extraction in New York. There's almost no hydrocarbon extraction, and that's what we're going to go in. So we do ethanol like at scale in California. We're not going to do that in New York. We're going to go in and we're going to do 2 different extraction lines versus 3. And we're going to target hydrocarbon extraction and solventless extraction. There's some strategy as to why we're doing that, but the hydrocarbon one is where the demand is. That's where there's a huge opportunity. And it's going to take time for people to build out they're volatile solvents that you're working with. So it's dangerous, and you got to build these rooms correctly and know how to use the machines. It all comes down to temperatures and pressures. And, we've gone out to New York, probably been there 10 times over the past, 18 months, just looking at products and touring other facilities and seeing what they're doing. And I would just equate it to they're where we were 10 years ago. I would even say that we had more experience going into it than they were where they're currently at, guys that are like literally brand new to it. So that's where I see the opportunity.
Can you tell us anything about the rescheduling movement? Are you hearing anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that we've got a better, I'm a part of a couple different trade associations, and that's all these guys talk about. I think that we're actually in a better place under Trump than we were under Biden. Does it happen this year? The rumor is that yes, it does on the rescheduling front and safer banking. I say the same thing though, and I'm not trying to be a pessimist. It's just I want to more of a realist. It's just like we've talked about this so many different times. LEEF is in a good position no matter what, in my opinion, on whether it happens or happens. Of course, if it does happen, it's going to be a massive tailwind. And I think that you're going to see this pendulum swing dramatically in a positive direction on the capital market, specifically in the capital markets of cannabis. What I'm hearing is that there's good conversations going on at the federal and at the state level here in California. But I don't know much more than that, like what it's going to take to actually happen and when it's going to happen. The DEA apparently dragged their feet pretty hard when the HHS, sent the recommendation to get it done last year. And from what one of the trade associations that I'm a part of has said is that the Trump administration has basically come in with Robert Kennedy kind of behind it, saying that we're actually going to take a real look at this and probably lean towards the side of what the Health and Human Services had advised the DEA to do. So that's what I'm hearing. So you look at companies like there's a few companies in the space that are doing quite well, and it really comes down to they've found a way to be profitable, whereas a lot of the other companies are not. You know, I think Glass House is a good representation of that. Grown Rogue is another one. Which is, I believe they're Oregon based. And one of the things, so we've got a strategy meeting on Thursday. One of the things I asked Jesse to put together was really just a chart on that. So like, we want to throw it up on the board and say, okay, how do we get LEEF to be $100 million valuation up from wherever we are today, 30-ish, within 12 months? And then again, how do we go beyond that? And so what he's done is he's taken a few of these companies that are seemingly doing well and put them up against our projections, what we think we're going to do in 25, 26, and then, you know, even further than that, just to make sure that, like, does our business model and the way that we're thinking of it, does it support us doubling, tripling the size of the business? And can we put LEEF into a position to where we can do what Glass House or Grown Rug has done? And I think the answer is yes. I think that, yeah, absolutely. If we just execute on what we're currently looking at right now, in terms of like our business model and what we think we're going to do in 25 and 26, I think that we put ourselves in the same category with the small few companies that are doing really good in the cannabis sector.
Well, what these two have in common that LEEF doesn't have right now is both of them have revenue growth and both of them are profitable. And so, you know, LEEF over the last 3 years, we have been flat in terms of revenues. And I think the moment you show revenue growth, and if it's a profitable revenue growth, you will get re-rated.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep saying, but the secret for us is really in this farm. It's you know, we're spending $25, and in a very short, you know, a few months here, we're going to be paying $8 for the same pound. That's on the dry side. On the frozen side, we're spending anywhere from like $30 to $50 per pound. That same pound is $5. So I think once we see the impact of
$5 when you grow it yourself versus 50.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's the difference between dry and wet?
It's the type of concentrate product that you're producing. So certain products require frozen material, which we call live, and certain products require dry material. And for us, it's about 50-50 through the extraction. So half the material we run is dry, half the material is wet. And yeah, we were targeting $15. We're like, man, if we could just get it down to 15, that'd be a huge win. But after looking through a bunch of a big farming operation here in California, looking through their math over the past 3 years of their operations, we actually think it's $5, maybe $6 per pound. That is what our true cost of goods will end up being.
And now on your, maybe, I don't know if you know it, but on your income statement, when you have your revenues and then you have your cost of goods sold. So your cost of goods sold includes buying the material from others, but it also includes like labor and some other costs other than just buying the thing, right?
Yeah, on the extract side, yes, it's the cost of buying the material, and then there's also like the manufacturing overhead. We have like a percent gram that we factor into everything because it's more of a hard cost for us. We know what it's going to be each time that we run these types of products. Where we can make a dramatic improvement in that, it really comes down to the yield. So higher yield, we see that cost per gram come down significantly. If we have a poor yield, it goes up, obviously.
When you were talking about, the valuation, how can we get, to 100 million valuation? When you're looking at Grown Rogue or Glass House, I mean, Grown Rogue is trading at like 10 times revenues, and Glass House, I think it's like 3 or 4 times revenues. But, if you got 3 times revenues, then you're at 100 million. But your revenues are going to grow. So then your base is not going to be, 30 million with New York. And, we could be looking at having revenue profile in 2026, I don't know, 50, 60 million. And then you put a 4 times multiple on that, we're talking about 200 million valuation.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. I think we're in a very good position to do that. I can't predict the future and guarantee that, but if I look at the other companies and what they're doing and the guys that are getting these higher multiples, I think LEEF is in a very, very good position to do that.
But right now, because of the laws, you have to replicate your model, let's say in New York. But what if interstate commerce is allowed? Then would you just use one facility in California to service all the states?
So it depends on how they structure the laws. And my prediction there is that they'll do what alcohol did, and that they're going to allow for bulk products to be shipped into markets, but that each state will regulate cannabis in their own way. And so like final form CPG packaging will have to be completed in that state, and they'll have a different tax structure and laws within each state. And so if that happens, I think everyone on this call would be high-fiving each other, because LEEF would be in a very, very good position. We're the largest at what we do, selling bulk concentrates in the best growing climate in the world, being California. And so I think what we would end up doing is we would have New York, we would have California, depending on when that happened. Maybe we see a pivot in our business strategy if that was to happen, this year. What I was saying earlier about like, we'll be in 5 different states and replicate that in 5 different markets. If the rescheduling, safer banking, and interstate commerce were able to all happen, we would double down in California, and we would just sell bulk concentrates to all of these other markets that do not have the infrastructure that California has. And I think that what would end up happening is like the $1,000 liter that we're selling in California would quickly become 5,000. And there'd be this window of time where other states weren't prepared with infrastructure the way that we are. You would see all the cost of everything, or the price of everything that we're selling in all of these various markets, go up dramatically. We would be oversold immediately. The fact that we're the biggest right now, we would be too small, and we would need to quickly acquire a couple other manufacturing companies or big cultivation footprints in California to maintain the size. And there would be a 2 or 3 year window where we would be printing money, and that would be the point when we would try and sell the company. That's like, if I could.
I mean, I think the market would go absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Like you would have valuation that just wouldn't even make sense to all of us.
Yeah, there's a lot of states in in the US alone that they don't have the climate. They would have to, like, to make the product that we make through an indoor license. Number one, there's just not enough material that comes out of indoor facilities to do what we do. And two, it's too expensive. So all of these other states that are even have rec or medical laws today would be competing against us, where we can produce those products for a fraction of what they're producing them for in, say, Michigan. And that would convert overnight. They would immediately be reaching out to us saying, I'm no longer buying distillate in Michigan anymore. It makes no sense. I'm going to buy it from you guys. Send it out to us.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, the only thing I would say is just thank you guys. I appreciate you guys supporting the company. We'll keep you guys up to speed as to what we're doing. And I'm excited about this year. I think that at the end of this year, we're going to look like a much different company than we do today. So I appreciate the support.